You certainly could, John. See if they do want to go down that route. If I do remember correctly as well, I believe it's Azura that tends to play the Morphling here for AG, right? So, still a good chance we might see the Morph go mid. Maybe just run the safe lane DB Quap again if you wanted to go down that route. I'd say maybe you're better off as well, like as the Morphling against the Ember. I'd say you'd much prefer that matchup. I guess the Quap isn't too bad either, but you still have that point where your Flame Guard just kind of blocks all the damage, and you don't really care that you're against the Quap anymore. So it's going to be very intriguing to see where Army Geniuses does go in terms of laning stage with these two heroes. Still MY, final pickup. It seemed like they might need an off lane of some sort, unless they're going to run the Tide off. Perhaps another support to come out for MY.
Did you have that Flux in closing out? I think you really want something to pin down this Morphling. You've got Phantom's Embrace Silence. That's pretty much your best way to start. Maybe Inkswell blink in on Tide, or Inkswell jump in on the Ember. But beyond that, I don't see the Morphling struggling here at all. I think they need something to pin him down fast. You don't really have a lot of options. You banned out the Bane yourself on MY. The Lion was banned out by AG. The AA was taken out as well, just to ensure the Morphling really does have this very stable game. I guess there's something like a Shadow Shaman, but we don't tend to see that too often. But that could be another way of holding down a Morphling. If you are worried, it's just that any hero right now that does provide you with Gold Hold is going to be picked into a Rubik, who already has a lot of good heroes to steal from. And we know Narman's Rubik. He does a ton of good work on his Rubik. Probably one of the best in the region, right up there with, say, BDZ in my eyes. So right. I think you're already going to have a bit of a hard time in limiting what the Rubik can take here. I think you've just got to accept that if you are looking for a Morph counter, you're going to have to worry about the Rubik as well.
Certainly agree with that. The question is, what is the counter even going to be? Well, it looks like they go down the LC route. So I guess you've got Jewel to really lock him down, but I wouldn't go as far as saying that's a real, confident kind of counter. I guess you could go back to that kind of old school build of Ember Spirit Vessel, per se, and just kind of run that with the Jewel. That might be the way to do it here against the Morphling. Let's just wait and see. I mean, it's still a very strong combination with the Grimstroke. You have that Blink Inswell Jewel combination, which can be quite detrimental to go up against. Army Geniuses, though, final pickup for themselves now. This should explain where everyone's going. It does feel like we're probably looking for another offlane hero. You could run the Pango off, though, run the Pos 4 Rubik and go for another position 5, perhaps. And they're not lacking too much, right? Like, in terms of team fight, they're covered, they've got plenty of damage. Their lanes don't look too bad right now, either.
I think for AG, if they are looking for something on the support, it is hold as well, because right now your best hold is lift from Rubik, and it's not particularly long to lock in an Ember. Rolling Thunder is not a very stable way of locking in an Ember as well, so maybe something that allows them to keep that Ember Spirit in its place, keep BB from jumping around is going to be really important. They've got a lot of time to consider that. Again, Shadow Shaman's an option there, but you don't have as much to worry about in comparison here because you're not playing against a Rubik for AG, so you could go for like a Shaman here. It is pretty greedy to go with the Clockwork instead. So that is one way of getting some hold off. Jumping backline is really nice as well. BKB Piercing, Stun the Hook. And if you can work your way up to the Ags, Overclock is actually really impactful in these fights. We've seen that actually change a lot of team fights once the support Clockwork can hit that Ags timing. So I like seeing that out here from AG. Should allow them to, again, jump in really fast. They've got a lot of reach with Quap and Pangolier, and now the Clockwork as well. Even a Morphling can just kind of waveform in. So you can play aggressive once certain items are met. I think MY, they've almost got the same pacing from game 1 here, Mike. You've got a very slow core for KNP, arguably slower than that Terrorblade he played in game 1. So MY is going to have to buy a lot of space out. We need to see aggression coming out from everyone else to ensure that KNP can build up here.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, you had the TB last game. He didn't have any space to farm. Medusa, I would argue, is even worse in that sense. But if you don't get the space, if you can't get a big advantage, you're just going to fall apart. I'm trying to really figure out whether they've got a draft that can be as aggressive as they need to be, and I think they certainly do. It does feel very much so on the shoulders of BB, though, on that mid-Ember, right? Like, you are looking for BB to set the tempo on this Ember Spirit. If he can't win out this mid lane and start setting that tempo, I do get very worried for MY. I mean, sure, you can always rely on Seri as well. You've got the Pos 3 Legion. You know, maybe he could kind of make the jump in and set the tempo himself from the off lane, but chances are, without a good game for BB, it does feel like AG might just have a repeat performance this game number 2.
Yeah, they really have to bring that aggression out. They have to enable KNP, because if he doesn't, I mean, you said it, game 1 was already pretty hard for his Terrorblade. I think we've also got to see that willingness from Leonak to get a good Ravage offer, just throwing the Ravage out, as we've seen Varish do in his support tide. We kind of need to see MY play like AG in game 1 with his draft. And I think that's going to be a bit of a challenge for them, because AG is kind of ready to fight against that with their own aggression. And of course, I expect great things from Narman Rubik. I think that's my big ace factor here for the side of Army Geniuses. They've got so many great spells to steal. I think Narman's always delivered on his Rubik, especially when we saw him playing for OB Neon. So I think NY's got to be really careful with the angles they find and when they commit that Ravage, because it's going to be a very easy spell to snag for Narman here.
Speaking of roster changes, by the way, Jonathan, can I just say I am so excited for BTS Pro Series Season 10 once we get into the actual tournament per se. I mean, these are the qualifiers. A lot of roster changes, John. Some have been announced, some have not. So you and I can't exactly share what we know, but very exciting times ahead, I'd say.
Oh yeah, I think it's not just the BTS Pro Series, because some of the teams, you know, we have the region finals coming out as well, and you know, one of those roster changes are there.
Don't say too much, Jonathan.
That I'm keen to see a reveal. I mean, you know, T1 already said that they've already, you know, had Savage inactive. What the heck has happened to Varish? Is it just me, Mike, or is he?
No. He's vibrating at the moment, Jonathan. He's
tickles. Is he stuck to his batter? No way. Right?
He's not stuck. He's found a spot that he can do this in. He's not. There's no way he's stuck. Like, how could you possibly be stuck?
Oh, that's great. Look at that.
Yeah. This looks fantastic. I mean, this is peak Dota, ladies and gentlemen. If you're expecting much else, this is what you're getting. I'm wondering how long he's willing to do this. He is not stopped. Varish is still... I mean, they're pinging him now. Like, Varish, we've got a game to play, sir. There we go.
Oh, God.
Well, he's late. I mean, he could have maybe contested that bounty rune, but he was too busy just shaking himself in the corner. I mean, there's no way to say this that doesn't sound dirty, Jonathan. You get my point. He was vibrating in the corner.
I think it was worth it. I think that little bit of enjoyment you get from the game is worth the sacrifices to make. And I think Varish did the right move. Sure, it's a 2-for-2 trade. No one dies. It's fine. He gets to walk into his lane. He's going to have to deal with Stylist and Seri on Legion Commander and Grimstroke. He's going to be helping out DB. There's a lot of aggression here that if they can line it up, especially with DB last game going for the 3-1-1 build, Shadow Strike focused up against a Legion Commander. It's not as easy to use that. Press the attack just kind of cancels that off, so we'll see if DB adjusts. Already taking that Scream of Pain level 1, but look at Varish just running down Stylist, ensuring that it's going to waste a lot of regen on himself here.
Oh, it's the Clockwork Dream, Jonathan. I mean, if you can separate the support from the core, there's just nothing they can do. That's why I've got 300 games on Clockwork, John. It's very enjoyable, let me tell you. I'm one of those people. I enjoy torturing people in the laning stage if I can, and Varish, I'm sure he's been enjoying himself very much so. Mind you, Clockwork could probably use a buff, I'd say, right now. It just feels a little bit weak, as Seri is going to try and fight back Varish. I think he's gone a little bit too far, but no. Turn around onto Seri, but not quite enough damage. Still, while we have a chance, we'll have a look at the other lanes as well. Azura does indeed go mid lane that Morphling against BB. I'd say this is probably the right decision here from Army Geniuses to just go the Morphling versus Ember route. Though right now, Azura, a little bit behind in terms of CS. Should be able to catch up with this wave, though.
Yeah, I'd say this is still slightly Ember favorite, just because you have a very stable wave here, but you can't really tank yourself up against the right clicks of a Morphling here. I mean, sure, you're going to be able to block off the adaptive strike, but Azura's key bread and butter is his right clicks, and that's just going to overwhelm the Ember in the laning phase. Not much armor on BB to really heal up there. You've got level 2 attribute shift now, so you're kind of secure for Azura. and he can just kind of play this slower. I think the pressure is on BB to play this one a lot faster, hit his leveled spikes, look for a fast 6, call for a support rotation, find that kill. Again, you've got the Grimstroke you can play with and open that up.
Well, constantly just aggression across the map, but bot lane is where the first blood is going to occur as Narman able to pick up first blood on that pos 4 Rubik. Leonak, the first hero to drop on the map, and you kind of commented on how much you enjoy watching Narman play this Rubik. You give him first blood, it's going to give him a great boost in terms of that gold and just those first initial items. Narman already off to a great start this game, number 2. And quite frankly, this bot lane is going pretty well. I mean, KNP is farming pretty decently. Wami, though, not really too far behind either.
Yeah, and just having this pressure early on is the key part for the side of AG. Like, Leonak can't do too much to relieve this pressure. They have no way of holding back a Pangolier who has Swash. He's always going to be able to bail out from the Gush and any sort of aggressive moves MY has. And Narman just makes this hellish for KNP to farm with every single use of the Fade Ball. And that damage reduction is going to hurt KNP's output so much that he's going to have to deal with that and the swashbuckle lucky shots down the line. It's not a very fun time for the Medusa as levels do go up. Sure, the kill potential onto the Medusa itself isn't high, but you don't... just leaving her alive without farm is much, much worse for Medusa.
Oh, Leonak. Yeah, he's gone too far again. Wami able to take him down this time around. Leonak, I mean, obviously you're playing pos 5 Tide, you're pretty tanky, 800 HP on the Tide Hunter, but you can't underestimate the damage output of a Rubik and a Pango. It can get quite high.
That initial magical burst is just ridiculous, and it's not like support Tides go for Kraken Shell, so you're not going to get the Dispel, you're not going to get some damage block from the right clicks, and makes it a lot harder to hold him down. They are looking to pressure Azura. TP out from Leonak is not timely though, so it doesn't really get a bottle refill. Still good charges up on BB anyway, but we are seeing the Morphling start to ride up in this lane. Levels are up, the right clicks are starting to hurt. 19 with 10 denies on the CS. That's putting BB in a really bad position in terms of EXP game. We talked about him having to get a faster 6. Doesn't look like that's coming out in this game.
Certainly not. Top lane, I'm just having a look here at Seri. Along with Stylus, you can tell they're looking for that Inkspell combo. Try and go onto Varish, but Varish's just been very cautious. Making sure he keeps away. When Seri is nearby, it's at that point, even if you have that level 2 battery assault, you've got to respect the damage output from MY. Unless you can split them up with the cogs. Looks like Varish might even try to just sneak up from the backside onto Stylist. Wards down, DB with the pings out onto the Grimstroke, but it looks like they've gone further south instead. So Varish getting even more wards out to just block the Ancient camp, and he might actually still run into this Grimstroke, Stylist. He's not going to bother. Looks like he's just not confident enough to go into Seri and Stylus at the same time. So we have a bit of a quiet period across the map. Looking back at mid though, John, I mean, Azura is starting to get a little bit scary in this mid. I mean, 31 and 15. This is what you're kind of worried about if you're MY. Azura's just having way too good of a game, and well, in we go with Narman. Looks like the Remnants though are going to be more than enough to get BB away. He just hit level 6. Have a look at that XP bar, John. He just hit level 6.
Oh yeah, they're really well timed for BB. Unfortunate for the side of AG, but that pressure being applied onto Ember is big, and he doesn't even get the rune. Narman cuts it off. Might pay with his life though if he's not careful.
He might be able to at least get this Rubik kill, just this pesky, annoying Rubik, though BB has to be a little bit worried not to go too far, and in the end can't even get that. In fact, he loses his courier to make matters worse. I suppose in the end Narman does walk away a winner. Speaking of winners though, KNP 36 and 6 in terms of CS. So we talk about the Azura farm. KNP is basically right on his tail. He's not struggling whatsoever on this Medusa right now. As Leonak, he is taking all the flack from Wami and Narman. And yeah, it may cost him his own life. Maybe not though. We'll see as Wami doesn't seem like he's able to finish the job in time. This time Leonak does get away with his life intact. Back to my point though, KNP having a very good game thus far.
He's going to have a good build-up into his initial items. Looks like he's going for the Dragon Lance first. They are also trying to get the stacks built up. They did manage to get the D-wards off. So there's a lot of gold to farm up here for KNP, and AG should be thinking about contesting that later on. They've got the clockwork, they've got the flare, they've got hookshot down the line to kind of get themselves in that position. They've got to be able to watch that Dusa. I think you are still happier with the early scaling of a Morphling in comparison to the Dusa, though. So I don't think you mind too much as long as Azura is getting the space out. And of course, you're going to have a lot of activity out from DB once that Kaya at the least is up and running. So you can look to isolate that way. Varishto in a bit of a tough spot.
He is in danger, but DB's going to try and jump in and help out. Sonic Wave is up, but he never gets it out in time. Hey, Seri was relatively healthy the whole time, so DB just not feeling like it's worth throwing it for the sake of nothing. So the only positive there for AG was Leonak did rotate on the Tide for pretty much nothing himself. But you still get the kill onto the clockwork. You'll be happy with that.
Yep. You managed to get some space going for your way. There's really not much the Tide can do down bot anyway, so you might as well be useful elsewhere. Side of AG now are starting to play in their own jungle. Looking like it's about that time where we see the tier 1 towers pushed in. Wards are in good position though. Nice aggressive ward from Stylus to watch that jungle. Varish still a ways off from 6, so the aggressive potential for Clockwork isn't quite there, and I think that's something AG is going to need. Some EXP spill over onto the supports, especially the Clock, as to start streaming in, but Varish is kind of forced to stay up top just to ensure that if DB does get jumped, he can at least slow down that process and buy the time to blink away. Compare that to KNP now. Playing in the triangle, clearing out the early stacks. He's getting a good amount of gold, and there's no one to check him. They know there are stacks, they've got the flare, but they can't really do much about it at this point.
It's a very slow game, isn't it, John? I mean, 9 minutes in, 1-2. 3 kills on the map. And Naman and Wami having a look around again at Leonak, who does reveal himself in the creep wave, but is at that point now with that level 1 Kraken show, he is substantially tankier. They will not bother trying to dive him. In fact, BB has also made a rotation over on the Ember, trying to catch somebody out. Not going to attempt to go after Wami, he doesn't have chains up yet. There's no real way to lock down the Pango, and you've got to be a little bit wary of the fact that Wami does have that Rolling Thunder available right now. You definitely don't want to get locked down if you can avoid it if you're BB. Thing is, he does have remnants, so chances are he'd always be able to get away. Again, just neither side really completely prepared to try and make some big plays happen. So Seri is going to start pushing that top tier 1 tower, but doesn't seem like AG are willing to try and defend this either.
I think they understand there's a bit of a spike here for MY if they do clump up. AG's going to need a lot of time to build up. They don't have the initial items they need yet on DB for him to start showing up. Wami doesn't have the ults to just constantly keep the stun lock going with the ults and the Rolling Thunder. So they don't have a solid way of pinning down, say, the Ember Spirit in these fights. And they just go for the farm game. Make sure KNP is farming, Azura is also farming. They probably feel more confident with Ember's early timing.
Oh, they do find the LC. Top lane, he did stick around, and eventually they do punish, but now Azura mid lane. He got chained up for a second, but nowhere near enough to actually take down the Morphling. Seems like they're just more than happy to keep KNP hitting creeps. And that is exactly what they'll do. So in some way, AG being unwilling to fight themselves kind of plays into what MY wants anyway. I mean, we thought that the rest of MY would have to be forced to play a 4 Protect 1 and get very aggressive, but they haven't needed to do that. So if you don't need to, why bother?
Yeah, it's a big benefit for MY. I think AG's lineup is the one that actually does need to go fast. They've got the Clockwork, they've got the Pangolier, they've got Quap, they've got the early presence that you kind of want to force out. Got level 6 in Varish, perhaps that's the level spike they're looking for. He's going to start rotating down, looking for the opportunity.
Poor old Leonak. Almost got the TP off to get himself out, but in the end, Wami with the Rolling Thunder, and Nama with the Fade Bolt gets the job done. And speaking of getting the job done, they'll get that bottom tier 1 tower. Same thing will happen up at top lane though, MY. Find a trade, but the problem is in the mid lane, Azura is pushing that mid tier 1 tower, and that's going to be very valuable when you're holding a Medusa in your draft. End up backing off though, not overextending, respecting how low an HP he could be right now.
Radiant's bottom tower is under attack.
We always talk about this with these Medusa drafts, John, but you never want to lose that mid tier 1 early on. You've got to be able to defend it if you're MY.
Yeah, they've got to put some bodies forward, prevent that tower from falling, to hammer their control on their triangle. AG aren't quite putting all the bodies forward as well to clear that out. So they're going to have to commit a little bit harder if they want to take that objective away. Varish has been doing a good job of just constantly replanting sentries on the Ancient, though. Like, it has been getting dewarded, but he's making sure that they're wasting 200 gold every single time to enable that Medusa's farm. That's going to hit the supports hard. That means your Tide is not going to have a quick blink timing. Your Grimstroke's not going to have a very fast Ags timing because of this resource war, just to enable KNP. I think that's what's giving AG the slight economic edge in terms of trading like this.
And he is certainly taking over, though, isn't he? I mean, KMP is doing a fantastic job right now. 6.5k net worth. Just 700 gold ahead of Azura now. In fact, even our Quap DB's taken over Azura on that Morphling. I suppose it is to be somewhat expected considering Azura is playing Morph and he's going straight into that shotgun build-up. Perhaps after he's got the shotgun is probably around the time we'll expect him to start really getting aggressive with his team. In the meantime, KMP has the R sharp. In fact, hold that thought because BB playing games here with DB. He's going to try and back himself out. The Yules will be there into the Rolling Thunder, which does connect with the hook shot. Oh, BB, he stuck around too long. Did not remnant away, and well, now not only will he pay John, but Stylus will also pay. Tips out.
Man. Great timing out from AG to get the punishment off. Just a bit of a tag with DB and BB. In the end, it does favor the side of AG, and that does give Azura some room to shove mid once more. The defense is coming through, but the tower's already gone. So that triangle, it's easier to invade. You've got the clockwork with the urn ready. They've been very consistent on AG in terms of keeping that pressure up there. And now KNP might be cut off from his farm. He has managed to get a lot of gold, as you've mentioned, Mike. Yasha up, Dragonlance up. Decent amount of agility and damage coming through, but not much durability yet. It's still a long way until that Medusa is really the big beast that she will be. And Azura, meanwhile, is leaning closer and closer towards that shotgun, as you pointed out as well. And they're not stopping, they're just constantly pressuring. Wami just casually yields us up Seri to get a bit of a scare going. Does have Varish around with a hook if they want to play here, though.
Very interesting as well, right? Like, I feel like we haven't even seen dual attempt from Seri as well. Varish, he does find Stylus. That should be a nice easy pick-off for the press the attack. He's going to buy a bit of time here for the Grimstroke to try and get himself out as Varish now between a rock and a hard place, but he gets the kill anyway. A 1-for-1 before he does end up dropping. In the meantime, Narman does get caught, but only for a moment. Remnant's forward is there from BB. Narman still trying to find a way out. Now with the Rolling Thunder, they'll try to turn back in with DB. He'll join the fray and just try to help out. Swami still rolling around, but now the Petrifier will be there onto the Rolling Thunder. And now the duel to commit Seri. He does win out this time around, but BB, he's going to drop in the meantime. That is not a great trade, as now the chains out from Narman to lock both down, but the Ravage is out onto Azura, but he's got the Strength Morph. He's perfectly fine. The Strength Morph in onto the Ember. They might just have enough of that KMP now. He's stuck on the high ground. He might actually enjoy that though, Jonathan. Things are getting rather scary, but DB will knock him right back to the low ground as Azura waveforms in. KMP is completely out of mana, and they've just got to get the damage out now. Slowly but surely, they should be able to get it done. KMP though still trying to run, but eventually Azura does waveform forward again. It does secure the kill. BB a bit too late to the party. Stylus will die again to Varish, and now BB, he's going to find his own way out, but he's got no remnants. He has no remnants, but he will not be punished for it.
It's a really prolonged fight. AG does manage to make it work, and Azura showing up very early on, just getting the right-click damage off. It's enough. He's got a lot going for him. You mentioned this earlier on, Mike, from BB, but he does go for the Urn build. And that is great in controlling the Morphling once you do have that full Spirit Vessel up. It does mean you're not actually doing as much damage in comparison to the usual Maelstrom or Corrosion. Like, you do still have some good right build coming through, but your sustained damage is not as good. And I think that's really putting the dent on MY's engagement here. And the big issue for MY is that their AoE control and Ravage is a lot longer in cooldown, which you could argue was AG's weakness in Game 1 as well, because they had the Tide, but they're playing around their Rolling Thunder a lot better. They're playing around their hook shots, playing around the cogs, the battery assault a lot better. And they're reaching this point where they're starting to be ready to fight. Kaya Sanj flying out here for DB. Gonna be really tanky up front to follow through the clockwork initiation. And that shotgun for Azura, it's flying in now, Mike. So the burst damage is there as well for the Morphling.
And it is. Let's get much scarier now if you're MY. It's almost a guaranteed just one-hit kill to any support here on MY. But I suppose Leonak should survive through it, but I can't say the same for the Grimstroke as... Well, speaking of, Stylist is being chased down by Varish, but... will back off. Stylist definitely not going to have a very good time here against his Morph now. That goes for everyone else as well, by the way. And that shotgun damage is going to be quite explosive at this point of the game. Like you mentioned just a minute ago, they just don't have a way to deal with the Morph yet. I mean, I expected a much earlier Spirit Vessel timing, and BB! Oh, the Rolling Thunder, it's going to connect again, but it won't matter, KMP. He'll commit the Stone Gaze. Try to protect his Embers. Now they'll go in back for the duel onto Seri, or rather Wami. They will be able to get one, but Azura, he'll join the fray now with a big Sonic Wave out onto TB. Sleight of Fist out as well. Chains are there, though. It looks like a very forced kind of team fight. MY, they are still trying to back off, though. They don't want it. The waveform forward onto KB. But Azura, he's still just going to walk his way out. Even with the double damage, he just doesn't have enough right now to really control anyone up. Leonak, he'll go for the Ravage. They are really trying to burst him down, but waveform back the other way onto the high ground as Azura now, with the cogs block off, will not let them get close to his POS 1. And in the meantime, DB does at least pick off Stylist. They still kind of end up losing out by losing that Pango, but I suppose it could have been a lot worse here for AG. Very, very awkward team fight.
I think the big win for AG there is they force out the Ravage and the Stone Gaze. Stone Gaze not as long for cooldown, but the Ravage is a big commitment from Leonak. And that does give AG a window. Once they have Hookshot back up, maybe once they have Scream as well, they can go for a kill. And Leonak's not that safe, although.
Oh, that's a nice target. They've got DB. And that's what you wanted to see here for MY. Yeah, AG, to be fair, did get quite greedy with Hadanam, and he even goes back for the kill. Definitely not worth the life of DB, who was on a six kill streak. So, bit of goal to go back the way of MY, but it seems like AG is still in good spirits.
They're still making it work. I think the key thing is that they just want Azura to be able to farm up in peace, and all of this action across the map is giving him that space. You are still giving a lot of space towards KNP as well. He is still farming top jungle, top lane is under his control. The triangle has still been relatively safe here for the side of MY. But they are much more confident just playing with this constant aggression here.
That'll be Stylist gone. Very easy here for Varish on this clock. Let's get chained up by BB, but you've got the help there from Wami. Again, that Rolling Thunder has been a real nuisance towards BB this game, so he'd rather not risk his life. Just back himself off, but now a 4-man smoke. Zura, not happy with the last engagement, wants to try and force another good one. KNP, well, that's a great target if they can get through the mana pool, but he goes right in for the Stone Gaze. Rolling Thunder, no, it's not going to make it. He gets petrified. I suppose you force out Stone Gaze, but look, they might be able to get Roshan. If you can get Roshan out of this, you'd have to call that worth. Where there's a 5-man smoke on the way, and Ravage only has 15 seconds till the cooldown. They can certainly delay it long enough to have that Ravage up. Trying to jump in, but Seri realizing that is an illusion, so instead BB jumps in with the Ink Swap, but it's not going to be enough. None of it lands. On the bright side though, Ravage is now officially up. And again onto Azura. Damage with the shotgun, but the jump is there. DB already fighting BB as the Ravage is there, but it's not going to be enough. Not without the Ember. They're going to try with the duel out. Maybe they can deal with Azura, and they barely get him. Not too bad here for MY. A 1-for-1 thus far, but certainly in the favor of MY as AG lose that POS 1. In the form of Azura's Morphling. They do also delay the Roshan.
To get big win there for MY. Checking their mid for mid, but that's really a pause 2 for a pause 1 in the end. MY going to be feeling a lot better. Ravage is down though, so I think for AG, once the respawn's up, they can just play again.
And trying to Seri now. Narman, he had the Ink Sword stolen. Even takes the press the attack for himself as Wami We'll leave the kill for Naaman, just not willing to risk his own life with that Blade Bell. Though he will risk it now that Leonak is around with KNP. Tries to Yules through it. Swashbuckle is there. Can he really find a juke way out? Not quite. End up eventually going down.
You are getting the back and forth trades. Bring the offlaners in the end. Double damage is spotted out by DB. Unfortunately, not going to be able to get it. Nah, BB does pick it up. So, stolen away. Surprised that he didn't go for the deny on it. Does get punished in the end. That could open up the Roche or a fight here for MY. Still kind of hard to see that without Ravage, but it's only a minute away. So you do have some time here to kind of get that going and look to re-engage. You are having an issue with melting through KNP. He is really tanky with just the ultimate orb, Dragonlance, and Manta. That's still a decent amount of stats. You don't have the burst on AG's end, even with the E-Blade up on Azura. Just doesn't have enough agi to really get that big damage off. I think you're going to need a little bit more farm on the Morphling end. He's starting to lag behind in progression here, Mike. He just doesn't clear out the camps as fast. As a Medusa with a split shot, it's just a slower process, and if that keeps up, they haven't been applying as much pressure on the triangle anymore. They've been leaving it alone. KNP's had a lot of room to keep this build up, and reaching the point where Scotty's going to come through. Medusa is going to be really scary to play into, and you don't have the best burst, the best way to melt through that mana shield just yet on the side of AG.
KNP still confident enough to go into that mid-tier 1 tower.
Dire's middle tower is under attack.
Skadi up very soon, and suddenly AG not looking quite as strong as they used to. It's Medusa getting scarier and scarier as time goes on. Be a 4-man smoke right behind him to boot. They want that Roshan, but they'll go for the fight first. Varish might be in position to break the smoke here against MY. They cannot see him right now, but now they can. They can definitely see that clockwork. They'll make the jump in with the jewel out. They should eventually have enough to get rid of Varish, but not for the jewel victory. So they'll find Naaman to boot, and that should be enough to force the Roshan.
That's a big opening. They really need a clockwork with Hook to contest, and that does force the buyback out from Varish. Should force to re-engage. Ravage is still up for MY. Even without the duel, I think Ravage is going to be able to turn it anyway. AG are going to try to look for an angle with a smoke though. So we'll see if they can find it. Good wards here from MY though to watch that entrance.
Keep in mind, you've got the BKB now on Azura. Make it kind of hard to lock him down again. Rolling Thunder. Oh, that's going to be a very nice angle. Wami, he gets soulbinded up, but it won't matter. They've already got silenced down. KNP with the Stone Gaze trying to petrify him up. In the meantime, Leonak, he gets the Ravage in time, but he does end up dropping his Varish. He will just force staff away. They can't kill him yet. Instead, they'll go on to DB with the Jewel out. Or even Roshan's helping to make sure this Queen of Pain does go down. It's not a bad team fight for either side. It seemed like it was a very even kind of engagement here. But if AG can get this Roshan, it'll certainly be their way. The problem is, it's not going to be that easy as MY. They do intervene. So neither side is really allowed to just go in there and have their time with Roshan. Not yet anyway.
Back. I mean, there's no Ravage now for MY, and Hookshot's back up. Just a bit of a reset for Varish. They should have that opportunity, but how do you deal with Adusa? Just not enough damage coming through from Azura. And his BKB's on cooldown now, so it's a risky jump in for him if he wants to contest.
Might try soon though, John. He's gonna try soon unless he goes for the steal, and he is. Waveform is there, he's got it! Azura snatches the Aegis away out of the grasp of MY, but can he win this team fight? KNP is still just man-fighting him. Azura, he'll try to stun him back off, but he may lose his first life. He'll go for the BKB instead, back in onto BB with the jewel out from Naaman, locking him down. Now Leonak's in trouble on the Tidehunter. That'll be another death for the side of MY, and they just keep going. This time around, they've got KNP, but can they get him? Naaman, he's been a real nuisance this game. He just continues to make the play after play as they go back in on that Dusa. Azura, though, still lacking a lot of damage, is continuing to try, but maybe forced to lose that first life. As DB in the backside trying to deal with this Grimstroke, but BB will have a look around for him. Won't be able to find him in the end. It won't matter though, because Naaman again is right back in onto Stylus, and now KNP's locked down in the cogs. Can they take him down though? He's so darn low, but not quite low enough. In fact, Jewel is out, back in onto DB, and they might have the Quap. They might have enough damage. DB, no! He gets the blink away. He barely blinks away. However, he's blinked right back into KNP. Sonic Wave to push him back to ensure that he gets himself out. What a team fight it was, John. It does favor AG in terms of net worth, and there was a dieback on the Ember. So I think you call that an Army Geniuses win, but they didn't really kill off KNP.
No, they have an issue with that, too. So you've got the Ag Shard up on Seri, so that short spell immunity is just destroying that burst window that Azura has. The Manta dodge just has been pretty on point as well. You really have to commend Narman. Like, you see why his Rubik is just something to be feared. He just jumps in. He jumps in, gets the lift, gets the duels off. He knows his team is there to back him up. And the fact that AG's built this comfiness with each other to have that trust in that jump in from Narman at this point, like he hasn't been on that team for so long, just shows you how easy it is for Narman to blend in. He's still going. They're still hunting here.
Yeah, they see Stylist and they just see red. Stylist, he's going to be able to get himself out this time. Still top lane, MY. It looks like they want to try and force a team fight. I mean, keep in mind, they had the Aegistat team fight for AG as well last time around, and it was still a very even affair between the two teams. This Medusa, again, just proving to be a huge issue. It's a matter of what the hell the answer is. I mean, what do you do about it?
Get more damage. Like, I wouldn't even be too surprised if Wami could maybe get a Bash or a Diffusal to help with control. Is going for the Halberd next. Smoke out from MY, though. Couldn't try to catch Azura off guard.
Ravage immediately onto Azura with the jewel to make sure he gets locked down. No time to react. What do you get out of this, though? At least a tier 2 mid tower here for KNP, it seems. I don't believe they can go high ground yet. But I guess the tier 2 mid is still pretty damn good.
It's still a big take for the side of MY. That allowed him to apply more pressure in the top jungle. Maybe look for an outpost place. Open up their push on the top tier 2 as well. And kind of invade the triangle area as well to cut off that build-up on the morph. Azura's got to be very careful about playing up front like that. Great smoke play out from MY. They understand what they have to do, because once you take the morphling out, there's no damage on AG. At least no damage to deal with Medusa. Like, so it's just a pipe dream to kind of keep KNP locked. They know Ravage is down, though. So AG might be willing to take the next fight on the respawn, just immediately look to force that aggression back.
MY is still very patient. I mean, they are still behind in net worth, but just keep that farm up on KNP. Just have the trust that KNP will just take over, as he has been. Barish. Point out here by BB, but with the cogs, he can just kind of zone himself out. Does have the hook shot, but the jewel was there in time. Very nice jewel. Out from Seri. One down. BB, though, he wants to try and reinitiate. There's no mana on BB, but with the press the attack, he does block out a lot of that magic damage from Narman. Still, they continue. Shotgun. Oh, he's not going to be there in time. They'll take Seri instead. Somehow, BB gets out with his life intact, but they have lost so much for this. And in fact, they're still going to lose BB in the end. DB able to pick off the kill. Leonak to drop as the fourth. The only survivor will be KNP.
Yeah. And I think that's going to be the story of the game. Like, AG can deal with everyone else. If KNP, he wasn't in that fight, but if he was, he could actually just fight back. I think that's still an issue down the line. So they'll just take what they can get, ignore the Deuce as much as possible, kill off everyone else, try to build up that way, and try to hit more item spikes with Azura. The Scotty's coming out next, more stats, stronger effect on the E-Blade, with more Agi up, and that can help, but I think you might actually want to get more right-click on the Morphling. Like a Daedalus down line is going to be big. Just have something to enable you to burst through the Dusa, burn that mana shield. The Halberd is already up for Wami, so if the Dusa does show up, at the least you're going to take away her right-click for a bit. And it's going to be a bit tougher for her to try to melt down AG while they're struggling to kill her off. But I feel like more needs to come out. Narman, working on his Ags as well. We've seen how big his spell steals are. He's got the shard as well with the press the attack now on him. So he's got really good saves for the team. I think the key thing for AG is going to be on Narman's plays and on the angles Varish finds on the Clockwork. If you can somehow pin down the Ember or cut off at least one hero from the side of MY, the fights become a lot simpler for AG in the sense that they can kill the other 4 heroes off. You're not at the point where you can kind of consider to do so yet.
Dire's top tower is under attack. Radiant's bottom tower
Not
is
tier
under
2 to
attack.
drop.
Dire's top tower has fallen. Radiant's bottom tower has fallen.
Still fighting here, AG.
Radiant's
And
middle
why?
tower is under
Maybe just
attack.
trying to secure that next Roshan for themselves. Just take over that Dire jungle. Again, very patient play here from this Radiant team. They might run right into each other in this mid lane. There's going to be a smoke out. That Observer Ward, I think, may have had vision over AG, so the smoke is well known here by MY. Or is it BB? He'll break the smoke. Will Remnant the other way, but where's the follow-up? Remnant's BB. He'll BKB up. He's going to be okay for now, as it looks like Barish is the one in trouble. They do get the clockwork down. That'll be it, MY. I suppose you take the clockwork kill. You force a BKB charge out of BB, but it's not too big of a deal for him. We'll see if MY can get anything out of this again. I mean, I don't think they could really try to force high ground yet, but I suppose we could try.
I think they can. They've got Ravage ready to go. And they've got their team fight ready for the high ground. Clockwork respawn isn't too far off though, and there is good wave clear on AG, so that process is a bit slower. You're going to have to kill off at least the Quap or the Pango just to ensure that the creep wave can't even touch the tier 3s. Roshan is not too far off though. 4 seconds away till we see the respawn timer. If they're lucky, it's a short one. It's going to be a longer one. So AG's got time to prepare, time to build up, time to get more gold onto Azure and to an extent onto DB. And they can kind of take it easy. It feels like the slow game does favor MY though, because KNP just keeps growing bigger and bigger. He is starting to hit his item cap. You know, might want to let go of the Dragon Lance for something else, or get a Hurricane Pike and then toss the boots. But we're reaching the point where you are peaking on the Dusa, so everyone else from AG can kind of start to feel stronger as they scale up with their own items as well.
Tier 3 top tower.
Trickster's rune of illusion.
He slowly sieged away here by MY. Everyone's staying right behind KMP. It's a safety net. Rish try to make the jump in, but the cogs are there to make sure that it kind of wards them off. Mwami going for that Rolling Thunder will roll right through KNP, but no commitment being made yet. Keep in mind, by the way, Narman does have a full Ags up now on this Rubik. So a 2-second cooldown spell still could be very problematic here for MY. Especially considering how well Narman has been running this Rubik. That being said, you are still dealing with a 25k net worth Medusa. There's only so much you can do as a support Rubik. And, well, for now, I suppose they've just got to worry about the next Roshan, which is slowly going to be making its way over. 35 seconds away. AJ nowhere near the pit at the moment, but
Boom, there it goes.
they'll deal with the bot lane instead and just split push that. Hope to force back MY instead of going for that Roshan.
Is under attack.
MY, they're not really budging. Going for a 4-man smoke up now. Find Azura, that'd be a great target, but the waveform is there just in the nick of time for the duel. It does end up connecting with the damage output. It's way too high. Ravage is out from Leonak with the hook shot. Barish on the backside trying to ward them off. Leonak, he will eventually drop and does. Meanwhile, KMP trying to petrify up this Morphling, but Azura's fine. In fact, they found Narman instead, but he does get his own Stone Gaze off now. He does finally end up dropping though, as KMP is still too much of a raid boss to deal with. They just won't be able to take down the Medusa or even get close. But it's not really too bad of a team fight for either side. Problem is now MY, they've committed a buyback and they might be forced to try for that Roshan.
Radiant's bottom tower is under attack.
Yeah, or try to look for an objective. I think they'd want to find another pickoff. They know it's a bit risky going to the Roche. So they're looking to just shove out the waves, secure their position first. AG, respawns aren't too long. And same for MY. So they're just going to make their way back. No Ravage on the Titan respawn. AG might be forced to buy back in Varish because they need that clockwork hook into the pit. They need a flare. So they have barely an idea that it's happening. They do have the ward watching, but they didn't walk in this area, so a bit blind here right now and checking out Roche.
Man, Wami, preemptive here without the Rolling Thunder, but he still manages to get himself out somehow. It's going to be very slippery here on the Pango. So the Roshan does continue as they continue to try and just delay this out as much as humanly possible. They've got the Rocket Flare vision to tell them exactly what HP the Roshan's in. DB, he's in an Azura. He stole the Roshan again. He's got the Aegis up on the Morphling. MY just cannot catch a break. They at least get a duel off. They do catch Wami in the end, but they're going to lose another Aegis. Azura is going to make it as hard as possible to kill himself, and now they'll lose Silence on the backside. This could be a bad team fight for MY if they keep this up. Azura, he is still fighting. In fact, he will back off now. He will go too much further. MY just don't have those quick fingers, John, apparently. They just cannot pick up the Aegis in time.
Yeah, I think AG's playing it right. They just throw 3 heroes into the pit, so when it does fall, chances are AG's going to pick it up with everyone on top. Yeah, it's a lot harder for MY to be able to get those items up, and they're going to smoke up. They're just going to force this fight again. Leonak does have Ravage if he finds a good angle here, though.
DB also got the shot. Oh boy, they got KNP, and that's the target you love to see AG catch out. Oh, he does not have buyback. No buyback, Jonathan. 90 seconds.
Yeah. He bought out his Swift Blink recipe.
Oh,
so very greedy. That is punished, and that's a huge opening for AG onto the high ground now. Again, there is still Ravage on MY, but without the Dusa now, without that damage dealer, this could be a bit tougher to defend.
Bye, Leonak. He has buyback at the very least. DB's still got the shards from Roshan in his backpack, by the way. He has not handed it to somebody else. A little bit rude of DB, I'd say. Does finally give it over to Azura. Tier 3 tower, though, is going to drop, and AG must be wondering why there's no buyback from KMP right now. There's one Rax gone, and I think by this point they realize they can well and truly go for a second. They can't go for the final lane of barracks, though. You've still got those top T1 and T2 towers. Azura does get jumped. Keep in mind, he does have the Aegis up, so you've got to kill him twice. Steve B, he's in the backside. Meanwhile, they've got the Ember locked down. The Ravage, however, trying to save, but Leonak, it's just not going to do enough. BB, he's still trying to fight this one out. He remnants away, just trying to get away from AG, but Azura, right on the chase, does secure the kill. And this has become very problematic now for MY. You've almost got KMP up, but you're missing this Ember now. He doesn't have buyback ult either.
Man, this is a very scary spot. They need everyone up. They don't have Ravage as well to play with for this defense fight now with the Dusa back up. They will go for the smoke play. Their Ancient is going to be exposed though. Azura, mindset on the game, just wants to get that end. And he's got the damage to just do this.
See if they can get it done. Stone Gaze is already committed, but looks like it was stolen. As DB just not fearing anything right now, going right in, backing on the Medusa. No, Varish, he's got the Grimstroke. It's a target they love to go after over and over again. This time, though, Stylist, he'll have the buyback to rejoin the team fight as the Ancient is already so low. This game might just be over. They are still trying, but it won't matter as AG make a comeback in this game too. And they will make it through to the finals. Unfortunately for MY, Jonathan, I mean, a great game 2, at least a great start to game 2, but it just fell apart on them.
Yeah, they had a really good fight, and they had a great win condition for KNP. We were talking about the comparison to game 1, right, Mike, where KNP had a Terrorblade, he didn't manage to get much space. This time, AG played a lot slower. They wanted Azura to really build up, and that did give KNP a huge farming advantage for a very long time. Like, they could not kill off that Dusa. And it just took one mistake, that mistake where KNP was caught without buyback, and it just fell apart from there. Like, he bought out the Swift Blink recipe, trying to get his itemization up before dying, and in the end, that cost him big, and that cost MY big. AG just managed to get their own scaling on. Like, that is still a Morphling towards the late game. He managed to get his Scotty up. He was less reliant on the outright burst. I think AG as a whole played really well. Varish had really good hooks. Props has to be given to Norman though. Like that, his Rubik play set them up in so many fights. in getting them into the Roshan as well, along with Varish and Wami and DB. Everyone just putting their bodies forward straight up to steal the Aegis twice over. MY, I mean, they had great ideas this game. Again, they enabled KNP as much as possible, but AG just played a lot better, Mike.
If they did, Jonathan, I mean, I mean, that game two's gonna hurt for MY. I mean, there's no sugarcoating that one. That's gonna hurt a little bit, and you know, we saw KMP just being unkillable the whole game, and the one time he gets caught out by himself, he doesn't have the gold for buyback. Well, it happens to all of us, Jonathan. Nevertheless, I'm sure he'll get over it. He'll be just fine. With that, though, John, that is it for all the games tonight, at least for the qualifiers. I believe we not us, but people will be back tomorrow to cast tomorrow's games for the qualifiers. Do we know who it is? Is it?
Oh, yes. I believe chat is going to be very happy. It should be XGod tomorrow, guys.
Uh-oh.
Make sure you tune in for that. It should be a good time. Man, me and Mike will be back the day after, I think. So, you know, if we'll be back, don't worry. But XGod's going to be there, guys. Big fan.
Love me some. I mean, I might just, you know, ignore the wife to tune into the XGod cast. Love me an XGod cast, Jonathan. With that, though, we are going to head off. It is getting rather late. I probably should go attend to the wife. So it is MLP Dota and johnxfire, and it's been a pleasure. We'll see you all again very, very soon.
Happy birthday, Mrs. LaPhoenix.